Superhero Talk Show. I am Brad West, your host. My co-host, Mr. Greg Burrow from Dragon's Lair, as well as Anastasia Anderson, are here with me today talking about dragons. This week, that's our theme. Kind of spun out of our research and curiosity to find out exactly what the dragon in Shang-Chi was. And we're like, what other dragons are there? Now, Marvel has a lot of dragons, as we've discovered. DC, not so many. But we're going to actually skip away from the big two and go to Image
Well,
Comics.
The big thing about our show is that we're talking about superheroes, so it kind of felt like we should add this last one in because this is a dragon superhero.
This is an actual dragon superhero. Name in the comic book is The Savage Dragon by Eric Larson. Now, for those of you who are not up to speed on Image Comics was a lot of the big name artists and writers and creators from the 90s who got kind of tired of the work for hire situation that kind of got them taken advantage of by the larger companies, broke off and created their own comic book company. And they got
Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson and
don't say it. Jim Lee and yes, Rob Liefeld. But anyway, so they all had their creative rights and everything. Now the interesting thing about this character, Savage Dragon, just to start off, this is the only other title besides Spawn that has consistently published since they started in the early 90s. And unlike Spawn, even though it is consistently published and has been creator-owned by Todd McFarlane, Todd McFarlane has let other writers take over, other artists take over. He's taken breaks, come back, whatever. He still oversees it. He still has all the rights to it, but he's actually, let other people do it. The Savage Dragon has been written and drawn by Eric Larson the entire time. For going on, it's almost 30 years, right? 93, 94, when is it started?
And the really weird thing is that the first appearance of Savage Dragon was actually not in
the
Savage Dragon comic. It was in Graphic Fantasy #1 in June of 1982. So
who published that?
I don't know.
But it was something it was a character that Eric Larson created. It was creator-owned. And when he moved over to Image Comics, and he created the new Savage Dragon comic book. Now, the interesting thing about Savage Dragon, I always liked this. This takes a page from Wolverine. In the original Wolverine, one of the things that was compelling about the character is that he had no memory of who he really was. For the longest time, and in fact, I enjoyed Wolverine better when nobody knew who he was. He was a more interesting character. When they had the X-Men Origins Wolverine and they actually came up with the Jimmy Hudson identity and all that stuff, I think it actually took away from the character. Much like the Joker, who has never had a reveal of his true identity. The closest they came to was the Tim Burton movie. That's the only time Joker
It was self-published as Ajax Comics Group. So Eric Larson actually published it himself. And I want to say that was... It was 1982, so it was probably just before he got picked up by Marvel.
Yeah.
He went to Marvel, and then I imagine that when he went over to Image and he helped create Image, that he decided to pop up his Savage Dragon, bring Savage Dragon back.
That makes sense. Well, at any rate, Savage Dragon first appears, and he's this naked green man with a fin on his head that has super strength and is indestructible, and doesn't remember who he is, doesn't remember where he comes from. And at the time, the police in the city in Chicago, it takes place in Chicago, the police are fighting a new wave of what they call super freaks. And that's their name for mutants or whatever, or / metahumans or whatever. They just call them super freaks. And this criminal gang called the Circle has been recruiting super freaks and taking over the city. And this cop, she basically convinces Dragon, is like, if you need a place to stay, if you need something to do, whatever, help us fight these things. And she kind of manipulates him into becoming a police officer. And so what I found really interesting about this character was that for the first good chunk of his story, he actually was a police officer. His costume consisted of a police uniform.
Oh boy.
And I always found that kind of interesting because it really played, it was the superhero but not a vigilante.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say the superhero part was that he was a cop, not that he was some random green dude who was indestructible.
He was a random green dude that was indestructible, but he worked for the police department.
Right, that was secondary compared.
Until he found out that the person who recruited him. So I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. The one that recruited him, in order to trick him into siding with them, basically put out a hit on her own cousin. Was it her cousin or his cousin? One of them put out a hit on her own cousin and accidentally got them killed. Basically, she put her cousin in danger to trick Savage Dragon into siding with her, and then it backfired. And so for like the longest time, the mystery was who killed her cousin, and then you find out that she was responsible for killing her cousin.
Oh.
Wow.
And that's what ended up turning Dragon away. He did end up with he ended up marrying this girl, and I know at one point they had a second one. So they jump into the future at one point, and there's another Savage Dragon who is really interesting to me because, as we talk about this a lot of times, especially for minorities, is coding characters. And much like the Martian Manhunter on the Justice League cartoon, they're like, well, he's green. So, it doesn't matter what voice we choose for him. And of course they pick like one of the greatest black actors of his generation, Carl Lumbly, to do the voice.
Oh, and yeah, my brain's gonna be like, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna hear him as black. And so when they come around to making John Jones's detective identity, they make him black, and that's how, now pretty much across the board, we always end up, in the Supergirl TV show, the Justice League, or the Zack Snyder cut, the Harry Lennox version and everything. We've got that. Well, they kind of did something similar in Savage Dragon, where they never actually identify. He's green. He's green. He doesn't know where he came from.
A random green alien dude.
So race is not really a thing. They don't even know if he's alien. But they do have him. With his girlfriend is black, and so the second Savage Dragon definitely is much more obviously coded black, and they do a really cool job of visually distinguishing them by creating more African type features, and it's a really interesting. And he's even a more I want to say army. He's a darker green.
Yeah.
Whereas the original Savage Dragon was like a much brighter color green, and then the other one was like kind of like a deeper green. So anyway, interesting characters, weird villains, and one thing that Greg didn't know was that they had a Savage Dragon cartoon even.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was only like maybe six.
It had to be
episodes
something
or
forgettable.
something. Because the thing was this: it's like this is like I said, this is the early to mid '90s, and Fox had great success with the X-Men cartoon that nobody ever thought was going to get the way it was. And of course it got spun up into the Spider-Man cartoon, and then Avi Arad just started pimping them out to UPN and everybody else, and then we had like a dozen of these random cartoons. Well, because of course Avi Arad, true businessman, was making money off of these things, and his attempt was to make the money off of them and get Marvel out of bankruptcy. And then DC was completely strictly with Warner Brothers, because, Warner Brothers owned DC, so your Batman animated series, your Superman animated series. Well, because of Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and X-Men, everybody wanted to get in on the action. So every production company was trying to find the next Batman the Animated Series or next X-Men. And it led to a metric ton of horrible animated series. And I can't even actually remember I knew it existed, and I know I saw it. But but they went to Image, and because Image, individual creators had their individual creator-owned rights, they were all eager to sign up, So Eric Larson licensed out Savage Dragon. It had a couple action figures come out with it.
Of course, HBO had Spawn.
And now Todd McFarlane did Spawn with HBO, and that was because Todd McFarlane's a much better businessman. Todd McFarlane, even when he created his action figure company, he went and licensed the other creators an image, and he's like, hey, he's like, you'll get the money off of your action figure, but I also get my cut too now. And so that's how he put McFarlane Toys, which is like a multi-million-dollar company right now. I mean, it's still producing to this day. But yeah, I know that Jim Lee had licensed, there was a short-lived Wildcats TV show, and even a company called Malibu Comics had licensed out the Ultraverse, which I did not watch because I just thought they were dumb characters. And apparently, though, it was enough of a threat that Marvel bought Ultraverse to shut down the cartoon, and then they canceled the comic books. And the closest they ever came, to using any of those things was the Nightman TV show. Now, I still need to investigate a little bit deeper because I'm trying to figure out Ultraverse comic books by Malibu Comic Books. Malibu Comic Books was actually who published the original Men in Black comic book. So I'm trying to figure out how Universal got Men in Black when Marvel purchased Malibu and squashed them. So that's something for another time. We should do like comic book business conspiracies.
Yeah, I'm down.
Marvel won't look so pretty by the end of it, but anyway. So that's what I know of Savage Dragon. But Savage Dragon has still got a big following and is still published to this day.
All right.
So, and it's had a couple of crossovers and stuff too. So that's what I know.
Very cool.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We were talking about dragons this week. Make sure you go to bradsredweb.com. Like, follow, subscribe, share. Keep up with us for all the newest stuff. We're going to be talking soon about, what is it, the next thing I want to talk about?
Well, next week should be the Venom, right? Is next week Venom?
Venom comes out next week, yep. So we're going to be talking about Venom, and we're going to end it with a movie review. Greg will be here with us talking about the history of Venom in the comic books. He is not going to watch the movie with us.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can't dig up another guest for the review. But anyway, make sure you watch it and come back and check. We'll see you next month.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Have fun.